Welcome to Legends of the Inkwell. I'm Dakota.
And I'm Jackie.
And today we're going to be diving into the lore behind the first set of Lorcana, the first chapter.
So basically, we decided to dig deep into the lore and try and pick out any kind of hidden details. I know I specifically don't know much about the future, so we're currently, at this time on set 4, looking into set 5. And we really haven't dug deep into the future, so we're trying to keep this strictly set 1 and using only the information of what was provided at that time and what was released.
And we'll dive into the other sets in later episodes as we go through this.
Exactly. Starting with the Disney Lorcana website, explaining, there's just a couple paragraphs here I was going to read out, going through what the set 1 is. So, a swirl of colorful starlight appears, growing brighter and brighter until it is all you can see. When the burst of light subsides, you find yourself in a wondrous new place. Welcome to the Great Illuminary, the center of a magical realm called Lorcana. The Illuminary summoned you here because of your powerful imagination. You follow a pulsing line of light through the curving hallways and numerous rooms to emerge into a vast atrium. A mechanism there towers over an open book. Sparkling down from above is a stream of colorful story stars, each containing fragments of Disney stories. Nearby, a unique tool catches your eye. It's an ink caster, and when you pick it up, it feels both exciting and familiar. Instinctively, you hold it high above the open book. Magical ink, pulsing with energy, flows through the mechanism and combines with the light from a story star on a page of the lore book in front of you, creating an image of a Disney character. With the power of your inkcaster, the image rises off the page. This is a glimmer, a new version of the character that only exists in this realm. As an Illumineer, you can create glimmers of characters and items to add to the lore of Lorcana, a treasure that must be preserved and protected at all costs. Soon, other Illumineers across the globe will be called to the aid of Lorcana. You'll summon glimmers to quest with you as you search for missing lore in a race against time. Only together can you protect this wondrous realm from threats.
I think that's really useful because it's definitely giving us a setting for Lorcana and a little bit of the background that we're going to need when we start going into this story of why Lorcana works the way it does.
Yeah, like it's this whole new world and how we're connected to it in a way. So it gives us that background.
So Ryan Miller had an interview early on, before, I believe it was even before Lorcana released, or just as it was releasing.
Yeah, early days. And Ryan Miller, if you don't know, is the brand manager and co-designer of all Lorcana. So he's one of the key guys, key players. He's a really interesting guy if you ever want to look into more interviews with him. So basically, he just went further kind of into what glimmers are. So they're essentially just sentient Snapchats of a character. So it's not the character, the classic Disney character itself necessarily, but it's a creation from the Illumineers to basically understand that character's story. So back in the day, the original Lumineers of Lorcana, of the Illuminary, would cast these glimmers of characters to better understand the character story. And that's how the stories were written and recorded. And basically, these inkcasters were just the record keepers. And if you didn't record these stories, they were forgotten forever, kind of thing.
Which is similar to the concept behind Coco, right?
Also that, which I thought was interesting.
I think it's interesting that the Illumineers are creating these glimmers, and they're using starlight and ink casters in order to create these glimmers to pull them off the page to write down their story.
Mm-hmm. So next we were basically going to go through the little animation that gets released with each set. So this first one is less than 2 minutes, and it introduces us to the first real Illumineers outside of us.
Yeah, it's like a teaser trailer.
Yeah, so basically it starts with this kind of goth girl. She's cool. She's got the purple hair, tattoos, piercings. We do find out her name is Shanzei?
Shanzi?
Shanzi. So that is one of the things we pulled from future cards is they'll actually have quotes on future cards. But basically, so she's performing maybe poetry. She's reading from her book in this like what looks like an open mic night bar kind of thing, and the audience isn't paying attention. But you can basically learn that she is a creative, artistic, doing this poetry, and she's kind of fed up with not getting any kind of recognition. I tried to deep dive. There's photos on the wall behind her at this bar. I don't think I got anywhere. It's blurry.
Yeah, and I believe there's also notes on her notepad as well.
Yeah, I tried to decipher them. It, we'll probably post it to the Instagram to see if anyone can get anything out of it. But the main thing of this screenshot of her notebook is her fountain pen comes up later as her ink caster. So like her artistic creativeness is through writing, and that's how her ink caster is designed for her, kind of thing. So if we keep moving through it, she gets transported to the Illuminary through the main Lorcana symbol.
That appears on the street in front of her as she's walking home, or wherever she's walking to. So from that logo, she ends up getting transported into the atrium of the Great Illuminary. And there's a little secret in the background, right?
Yeah, so what it looks like, and I tried to brighten the little snippet, is it looks like it's like overflowing flooded room, and it's got things floating in it. So it looks like one of the main ink looking pillars is floating there, a book, some circle-y, sunbursty vault door kind of looking thing is there. That's the one I couldn't figure out, but it looks like we'll hit on it later. I might have found something similar in one of the backgrounds of the cards. But so that's just something that you easily could have flown by to keep an eye out for here. So kind of hinting at there's this great flood potentially. So basically the ink is like this white ink light following the lines of the floor that she follows into another room that has the main mechanism. Which is that the Illuminary? What?
The entire building is the Illuminary, and it was created by the curator. I think we forgot to mention that in the beginning. The curator actually requested help from others, and that's when the Illuminaries became a thing. But
Yeah, so that
they all went missing.
Right. So the original curator had the apprentice Illuminaires, and they're all missing.
But it appears that the Great Illuminary is a magical being of its own, right? Similar to, I would say, the Madrigal's house.
Oh yeah. Like it is actually alive.
Where it's actually alive. It's magical, right? It's able to show people where to go, and
Right, and
it's requesting help from people as well.
Exactly. So these Illuminaries in this animation, but also us as the Lorcana players are Illuminaries or Illuminaires.
Yeah.
So basically she follows the ink light into this new room where she meets two other new Illuminaires. So one, we find out his name is Martin, and he's very green and yellow, which hints at obviously
Amber Emerald.
Amber Emerald, and his what we learned to be is his Inkcaster is like a guitar looking shape, so he seems to be more musically inclined as his kind of creative background. And then the other guy is very like red and blue, so
Ruby Sapphire, and that's Venturo.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks to be more technologically advanced than the others. He's wearing headphones, like over the ear Beats headphones. His Inkcaster is actually a gadget that's on his arm. I think the point here is to point out that all three of these Illuminaires are all creative people in general, right? Between music, poetry, technology.
Yeah, so variety of artistic ability, no matter where it comes from, but it's all there to help and provide different, perspectives and whatnot. And then she picks up her Inkcaster, which is the shape of the fountain pen, and she's able to cast a Hercules Glimmer. And that is so it's Hercules True Hero, which we have a card for, and he is Dreamborn. So he looks like your classic Hercules, but the Dreamborn aspect of it is
slightly different. Being a Dreamborn, he's brought to life in either the imagination of the Illuminaire or what he imagines himself to be. We're not 100% sure on that yet. We haven't figured that part out of that into the story this far. But we know that they are just a slightly altered version of themselves.
Yep, and he's, big and bulky and holding his shield, which has the steel color emblem on it. And then that's essentially where it ends, as far as the animation at least goes. So, but we do get very familiar with the atrium and what it looks like. And basically, we try to pick out what characters on the cards were in the atrium, and we're trying to pull together that story.
I think one other thing that was interesting is when she goes to cast the Hercules True Hero, one of the ink pillars does lift up, showing that she is wielding the ink in Lorcana.
Right. Right, yeah, and that directly like flows into the book, which then flows into drawing the character. So it is.
And there are 6 pillars in the Illuminary.
Yep, 6 pillars, 6 different colors. All makes sense.
So I think we should go into the cards a little bit. Obviously, there's character cards. They could be Storyborn, Dreamborn, like we previously mentioned, or Floodborn. There's slight differences between them. Storyborn is how we know them from their movie book.
Yeah, classic, right off the page. Very familiar.
Dreamborn is like we talked about, either the imagination of the Illumineer or of that character themselves. So just a slightly modified version of themselves.
And Floodborn is very specific to Lorcana and what is happening here. So there seems to be this great flood that has happened that maybe like the Inkcasters may not have casted these glimmers and they may have came from the flood themselves. Something along those lines. I don't think we have the answer for that yet.
We don't have the answer for that yet. The one thing that's interesting about Floodborns is that they are better versions or elevated versions where they do more powerful things compared to the regular Storyborn.
And I think every single Floodborn is shiftable. So like they can shift.
Right, they are shift characters as well. So you can shift them on top of their regular Storyborn or Dreamborn.
The other cards, we have actions. Most of them are songs. All songs are actions, not all actions are songs.
Yep. And then finally, we have items as well. We're not sure what the purpose of the items are, why the Illumineers would make glimmers of the items, but I'm sure that's something we will find out in the future.
Sure. And one of the key things that helped us break down these cards that I learned very recently. So for the flavor text, there's a little like decorative line above it that's either in the shape of a quill, treble clef, or a book. If it's in the shape of a book, it is a direct line from their movie.
When you have the music note as the line, it is a direct lyric from the song that you are singing.
Yep.
Finally, the quill is the most interesting one because that's the one made up by the Illumineers. So it's not from the character's story, it's from the story of Lorcana.
But with respect to the character itself. Or you can also have nothing on there. It can just be a card description.
So going through a few of those cards that helped us kind of break down the lore of Lorcana here. The first one that I'd like to point out would be Hades. His flavor text says, "Production is up, costs are down, the rivers are full. Time to talk expansion." This is interesting because it could show that maybe these things are happening to the Great Illuminary because of Hades. If he's trying to figure out expansion, maybe he's trying to flood the Great Illuminary or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah. The river definitely seems to be some kind of core aspect to the story. We're not exactly sure what yet. And we are going through the cards just there's 204. We're just starting at 1, going through. We didn't try to put a story together because
it's hard to figure out when one card started and the other one finishes, and it's kind of hard. So we'll let you guys put them in whatever order you want, but we're going to go through them in number order.
Exactly. So next up we have Mickey Mouse True Friend. His flavor text is, "As long as he's around, newcomers to the Great Illuminary will always get a warm welcome." So he's basically just the greeter.
The Storyborn Mickey Mouse that you know and love. He's the greeter. His picture is in the Great Illuminary, which is cool.
But he is missing when our new Illumineers enter. So there's something to be said there.
It is interesting that he's not there in the video.
This next one is just a little bonus for me, but it's the Stitch Carefree Surfer, and the art includes Pudge the fish. Which, if you watch the movie, it's one of my favorites. And Pudge controls the weather, so you got to bring him a sandwich. And the dark history there is, Lilo lost her parents in supposedly the storm, and she believes that this fish controls the weather. So it's a really sweet thing that she brings this peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day to.
And Stitch is holding a sandwich while surfing.
So I absolutely love it, but that's just me nerding out there. Our next one is Hakuna Matata, and nothing really crazy here. So it's an action song, but it's really the art behind it's when they're walking across that log bridge a million times. But this one specifically has in the background the elephant graveyard and like the desert that Simba runs through. And I absolutely love the art of these cards. They're so cool and they pick up on so many little aspects from the movies.
The next one we have is Just in Time. It's an action card. Its flavor text reads, "The best heroes always arrive at the perfect moment, whether they know it or not." This might be a hint to the future. Maybe we're going to get a hero that's going to save us from whoever the big bad is, but Maui is a hero. So
Yeah, so heroes play just such a big role in this game that it's worth, it's a little suspicious.
it's worth noting.
And then we get into Elsa Snow Queen, who is one of the like main poster arts for this set. And hers says, recreated by magical ink, Elsa found herself in an entirely new world. Fortunately, ice works the same way everywhere.
And what also is interesting about this one is in her photo, she's obviously wielding her ice powers, but she also has a lore book that she's levitating in front of her.
Yeah, which has all the swirly inks that, you'll see like, again and again throughout these cards. And it is our first card that mentions like the ink. Like this is a direct connection to, our
The story of Lorcana.
exactly.
Next, we have Flotsam and Jetsam, Ursula's Spies. These ones are interesting because they're in Ariel's treasure cove.
Mhm.
And in one of them, you can see there's this swirly gyroscope type thing that Flotsam is stealing from that treasure cove, which we might end up seeing again in the future. It definitely appears in other cards as well.
So, and then their quotes are, "We know someone who can help you for a price, and we can help you get anything you want." So, obviously related to Ursula, and there's more hints further on, but Ursula does seem to be the big bad here. So, next up is Magic Broom Bucket Brigade. And they say, in the immense story forge known as the Great Illuminary, there's always work to be done.
This is another one that's just like the Mickey Mouse, the regular Mickey Mouse, that directly relates back to the story of Lorcana and the Great Illuminary itself.
So, and they're holding the purple ink buckets. So I don't know. I guess it might not be ink, but is it the amethyst ink or is it something else? It's definitely different from the movie where it's definitely sloshing water. So,
Yeah, it looks like they're maybe cleaning up from a flood of some sort.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer. And he always goes for the clean sweep. So he's been summoning the brooms to come help.
And in the background of his image, there are a bunch of brooms carrying that purple liquid again. And he is wearing the amethyst symbol on his robe, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. And he is an amethyst card, so there's that at least. And then Zeus, god of lightning. And his quote is, "A little lightning solves a whole lot of problems." I don't know if that means anything, but I know light is involved with this ink story, and, he is a big, in theory, heroic guy. I know he's not an actual hero, but
Deity.
deity, sure.
The next one, which is super interesting, is the Duke of Wesselton. He doesn't have any special abilities or anything like that, but as we know him from the movie, he's really good at inspecting. He runs into the castle of Anna and Elsa and makes sure everything's in tip-top shape, things like that. So he's doing exactly that at the Great Illuminary in his picture, and he looks to be holding this like purplish colored seaweed and there's ink that is flowing or dripping through the great illuminary behind him.
Yeah, so it definitely looks like a state of disrepair. And this is the first card where I saw that like circle looking vault thing in the background. Do you see that?
Yep.
So I don't know if that's just part of the atrium or something along those lines, or maybe again a vault thing. Not sure, but that was something that was floating in the animation.
And his flavor text is straight from the movie, but it could relate to this as well. Sorcery. I knew there was something dubious going on here.
Then we have Kuzco, Temperamental Emperor. So nothing too special, but his quote is, "I asked for emerald, and that is clearly jade. What is wrong with you people?" So, and he happens to be an emerald card. It's just funny, and I love Kuzco.
The next card we have is Mickey Mouse Artful Rogue. He is a Floodborn, and the scene that he's in, we believe it to be at the Great Illuminary. It's hard to tell because now we're looking at an exterior shot, but it also kind of looks like the scene from Peter Pan.
Yeah, where they're all standing on the clock tower.
The best part of this card, though, is the flavor text is quiet as a, well, you know. This card also has an enchanted version of it. And in the enchanted version, you actually see him flying through the air inside of the Great Illuminary. So that does give you a little bit of different aspect on it when a card is enchanted.
Yeah, they have a different artwork. So then we have Mickey Mouse Steamboat Pilot, and he says, "On the rivers throughout the Inklands, the little steamboat's whistle answers the cheery tunes of its pilot."
So this is interesting because now we have another rivers tie back.
Mm-hmm.
And it also mentions Inklands.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what Inklands are yet.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
This is unknown to us at this point. Since there's no locations in that first set.
Right. Yeah, and so this is Storyborn. However, the boat is very kind of more whimsical than the actual Steamboat Willie boat. So there's something to mention there.
But he himself is still in black and white, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which makes him a true Storyborn.
So then we have little baby Tamatoa, drab little crab. He's basically just holding up a little coin that has the lore symbol on it, or what looks like the lore. It's not perfectly proportioned, but he's also adorable.
Starting to think you picked more than just
Okay, well,
story cards.
You know, there's only so much lore you can dig into.
The next one is Tinkerbell, and in her artwork, she is clearly in the Illuminary. It does look like it's getting better or in better repair in this image.
Yeah, so like this is where we were trying to put together like a timeline. So is this before something happened, or where is this? Because something definitely happened.
Do they create Tinkerbell in order to help, just like the brooms, clean up using her magic?
Or was this just original when she was a glimmer and pulled off the page? I don't know. Our next one is Stampede. It's an action card, and it says, "A wildebeest stampede is like a raging river, best experience from a distance."
Another relation to river.
Yeah, so what I was thinking here was maybe the original Lumineers, like, did this mysterious river thing come in, and they were like, "Best get out of here, see it from a distance." I don't know. Pulling at strings here.
Next, we have Aladdin Street Rat. What's interesting about this card is in the back of it, you see another one of those gyroscope looking items.
Circle looking.
We're still not sure what those are.
Yeah.
But
might be related, might not.
Next, we have Mickey Mouse, Brave Little Tailor. What's interesting about this card, we don't know how it relates to the story, but there does seem to be a shadow of a large hand in the card. So it'll be interesting to try to figure out who's casting that shadow.
And then we go into Minnie Mouse, always classy. Her fashion sense is always on spot. But the suspicious part here is that she also appears to be in the Illuminary, except for it's completely like destructed. Like the pillars are cracked. I don't know, there's like flashing ink light going through it. It seems to be completely destructed, and she's just trapezing through it as maybe a distraction piece. I don't know.
No care in the world. Next, we have Cut to the Chase. It's an action item or action card.
And it has the Brave Little Tailor Mickey.
And he's looks like he's jumping towards castle. But the interesting part of this one is in the castle, there's a shadow in the doorway. We've heard a few theories about who that shadow is.
But basically, I see it as someone like kind of big and brawny, just like crossing their arms, just looking out the window or something. I don't know.
We think it's Pete.
It could definitely be Pete. And then we have Ariel, who's it collector. You want thingamabobs? I got 20. But basically, she has another one of the like gyroscopes in the back.
Next, we have Aurora, Regal Princess. What's interesting about her card is in the artwork, the banister behind her, even though she's storyborn, is the sapphire symbol.
Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting because the storyboards are just typically right off the page, but how is the sapphire symbol suddenly in the cast? Who knows? So next up we have Belle, Inventive Engineer. A little ingenuity and a lot of heart will take you far in this world. And she's basically, so she's in her whole like inventor outfit and she's holding what looks like part of the mech that is seen in the atrium.
Yeah, and I think this is one of them that really made me think they're creating these glimmers in order to help fix or repair the Illuminary.
Yeah, yeah, and she's Dreamborn, hero, princess, and inventor. So she's one of the first ones to say like inventor. So is that, just part of the team that helped originally kind of make things happen? I don't know.
Could be. It's very interesting. The next card we have is Maurice, world famous inventor, who also happens to be an inventor on his card. He's Dreamborn, mentor, and inventor. And he's holding another one of those gyroscopes. Looks like he's trying to fix it. So this gyroscope just keeps reappearing in a bunch of these different cards.
Next up is Merlin, self-appointed mentor. And his is just a actual quote, book quote that says, "What a mess, what a medieval muddle. We'll have to modernize it." But basically, the art in this one, it has, I'm not sure if it's related to anything, but there's this triangle symbol, and it's like similar to the ink light, how that flows, and also within his little hourglass shape. So I think it's just something to keep an eye on, see if we can relate these to any other figures in the future.
Yeah, the art just looks very whimsical, similar to the Great Illuminary.
Exactly, and not directly off from what the movie is.
The next one we have is Mickey Mouse Detective. This one is directly related to the story. He is a Dreamborn and he's a detective basically. And he's in the picture, he's holding a pink piece of seaweed that has some ink around the outside of it. And his flavor text says, wherever the seaweed had come from, Mickey was sure of one thing. Something fishy was going on.
Yeah, so this is just the direct connection to it's probably Ursula related. The seaweed, the ink, it's a direct connection there. This one, Captain Hook, forceful duelist. He loves to make light of a foe's predicament. I'm basically just mad at this one because he's got little Tink trapped in his lantern, and that's just.
It's a foe's predicament. He's making light of it.
All right, yeah. That was good.
So the next card we have is Genie on the Job. He looks to be creating some sort of magic, but in the background you can see that he is inside of the Great Illuminary. And when he switches over to his enchanted version, we get an even better picture of him being at the Great Illuminary.
The other enchanted that had like an interesting different art was Belle, Strange but Special. So like her original art is just her holding a book and it's kind of whimsical. But on the enchanted art, she is in a what looks like a library, but it is in the atrium. Like you can see the pillars in the background. And there's books with again, the swirls, but also kind of more mechanism-y, which goes along with like the blue intelligence kind of thing, in my opinion.
There's also scrolls flying through the air. One of the scrolls has a hidden Mickey on it.
You have a couple hidden Mickeys in this one, which is, I think, the first. I haven't noticed any in the other cards, which I'm a big hidden Mickey girl, so. But so I thought that was a very telling, like that's a very different card for the enchanted version compared to the others. We didn't really notice much going on there other than, I think, Mickey.
Next, we wanted to talk about one of the cards that was also actually a promo card is the 4 Dozen Eggs song. In the background of the 4 Dozen Eggs song, you can see another symbol that looks very similar to the one that's in the Merlin card. Not sure
Yeah.
what that one is, but
Yeah, so it's just a triangle again, and it's just like an equilateral triangle. And it's just suspicious, that's not something that naturally shows up in, the movies or just the world. Like,
right, yeah.
so it's something specific to note there.
So just a quick summary. The first set, it's still pretty early on in this saga, I would say.
Yeah, so there's not much storytelling here. We tried to pick apart as much as we could.
But we're missing a lot of information. It's still very much a mystery to us what's actually happening here. One thing that I did want to touch on, though, is the ink colors themselves, because I believe they relate heavily back into our 3 Illumineers that we see in the story there. So, first, let's talk about our main character. She is the Amethyst Steel. Amethyst glimmers, they rely on enchantments to keep their options open. That's kind of the official description of that ink color. And then she's also steel. Steel glimmers rely on brute force to forge ahead.
Yeah,
So,
so which makes sense with their symbols. Like the steel is very much like a armor shield, almost looking like a fist kind of thing. And I also, as far as the Lumineers go, like they seem to be two colors, which relates back to the gameplay itself of your decks can only have two
two
ink
colors.
colors. So that makes sense. And then we have Martin, and he's Amber Emerald. So amber is purposeful amber glimmers protect their friends at all costs. And I think that relates back to the symbol kind of looks like a shield, but also like a Celtic knot kind of thing. It's all intertwined and makes sense.
And amber is one of the colors that have the most singers.
Mm-hmm.
And he happens to be a
Oh, the
musician
musical
as well.
guy. Oh, that makes sense. Look at that. And then emerald glimmers are among the most flexible and can adapt to overcome nearly any situation. Also goes along with their symbol. It's very flowy, almost even river-y.
Ooh, rivery. It's a new adjective. And then our last one is Venturo, who is Ruby Sapphire. Ruby is daring glimmers, often leap without looking. So he's a little more forward about things. But the Sapphire, brilliant Sapphire glimmers like to use the best tool for the job. And we see this with his Inkcaster being that kind of glove.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Kim Possible,
Yeah,
the
very
little tech sleeve.
technological advancement, kind of tech
So,
savvy.
yeah, and that symbol is like, it looks like anatomical, kind of, chemistry schooly, I guess. I don't know. And the ruby one, just to hit on that, I can only see like a comet in it, like a meteor.
Yeah, like a blast almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that gives us a little bit of background on each one of the Illumineers and how they're going to progress throughout the story as we know it.
Yeah, so hopefully we can make some more connections, as the story develops.
So I think we're going to wrap it up with one of my honorable mentions that I wanted to note here to show that the Glimmers are not the same character. When we look at the Musketeers or the Musketeer Tabard, we see that instead of having a fleur de lis, the cards for Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Musketeer all have the lore symbol on them, which is kind of neat to show. So that was just an honorable mention that I wanted to throw in here at the end. But a quick summary recap is basically we're finding out that there's this place called the Great Illuminary. It's abandoned. It's looking for our help. We have to create glimmers to try to figure out how to fix it and what's going on.
Yeah, and at the same time, we're getting these Floodborn characters. Not sure what that's about.
A few random clues in the background that
Something about a river.
something about a river and flow and flood. That'll be interesting to see how the set 2 lore plays into this.
I'm really excited to dig deeper into the sets, 2, 3, 4, and obviously the rest coming. So it'll be fun to go through page by page.
Card by card. All right, let's wrap it up with what we did this week in Lorcana. What did you do this week in Lorcana, Jackie?
I finally played a puppy deck. I played against a puppy deck and they beat my butt.
Oh, no.
It was all puppies, an Alamo Madrigal, a Chernivog, and a Bruno. And, I mean, I did win one of the three games, but yeah, surprisingly, like she wasn't planning on winning, but she kicked my butt.
The meme deck worked. This week I played at League as well, and then I also created a new deck. It's a Amber Steel deck that is very bodyguard heavy. I'm still working through it. I think it needs a little bit more work. We're going to see how it goes. Turns out that when all of your characters have bodyguard, none of your characters actually have bodyguard. So, little things to tweak there, but should be good. Well, thanks for listening, and make sure you guys check us out on Instagram at Legends of the Inkwell.
Yeah, definitely let us know if you have any comments, anything else that we missed, because I'm sure we missed something here.
We're going to post a bunch of these card images and kind of show off what we were talking about. With that, we'll see you next time.
And remember, it's a great day to have a great day.